was about 10 years old, and my cousins had come over for dinner. And as usual, we all ran off to play hide and seek after eating. Me, naturally being a small and flexible child, decided it would be a good idea to hide behind my mom's new massive Mac computer. This was in my mom's office, and the computer was in front of a large window. The window led out to the side of the house. Keep in mind, our house had sort of a rock moat around it, and you could stand between the house and this rock wall and then crawl underneath the house. So as I was hiding behind the computer, I looked out the window and saw this old man dressed in shredded blue overalls and carrying a red toolbox with the letters TJ written on it, was standing out there staring at me. He didn't move, just stood there, scowled at me. He looked so angry, and I didn't know what to do, so I sat there and stared back, thinking it was one of my dad's builder friends. I turned around and called out to him. I turned around and he was gone, so I thought he walked away. I told my dad what I saw, and he said it was nothing, so I never thought about it again. Roughly 2 weeks later, a 40-year-old lady came to our door saying her parents owned the house before us and was wondering if we found any of her dad's belongings under the house where he hid them. Turns out her dad was a car mechanic who, for some bizarre reason, bred and kept puppies underneath the house. At some point, when he went under the house to check on the puppies, he got stuck. He started to struggle and eventually had a heart attack and died. His name was Tyler Johnson, and she said that she'd been looking for his old red toolbox and war medals. She showed us where it should have been under the house, and it was directly under the window of my mom's office. It wasn't there, but this is still the weirdest experience I've ever had. I'm 27 now, and my brother, who is part of the story, is currently 23. I was about 13 when this happened, and me and my brother still remember it. I can't remember what day this occurred on, but it was a school night at about 11 p.m. My brother and I shared a room, which meant we also had a bunk bed. My brother slept on the top bunk, and I slept on the bottom. I'll need to explain the layout a bit so you guys have some context as to why I can't explain what happened. Directly outside of our room is the main hallway to the house. To the left of our door is our parents' door. A utility closet at the very end of the hallway next to their room. Then the office room and bathroom on the opposite wall of our room. The ceilings aren't very high. There's about 3 inches of clearance above our door frame in the ceiling. This will be important later. I was laying in bed, awake, at about 10:45 p.m. My parents were asleep, my brother was asleep, but I simply couldn't. Anytime this happened, I'd simply let my thoughts wander in any direction until I finally fell asleep. But abruptly at 11 p.m., the noise happened. I lurched up in bed. It sounded like someone slamming their fists against the wall at the end of the hallway, and then a couple lighter sound thumps right after. Everything was quiet, and I could hear my heart beating in my chest, sitting there wondering how this didn't wake anyone else up. Then the sound picked up, but louder. It sounded like something heavy was climbing the walls outside of the hallway. These weren't little scratchy sounds like a squirrel or something stuck in the walls at all, but a loud, prominent, like Spider-Man was crawling on our wall, back and forth in the hallway with his palms. The sound traveled back and forth twice before I heard my brother call out my name. "Jay?" he called out. "Yeah, I hear it too." The sound continued to crawl the wall very fast for what felt like 5 minutes. Then the pace slowed down. When the sound was traveling back to our door, it got to a walking pace. Until right outside of our door frame. Complete silence. No motion from me and my brother. We stayed quiet for 2 more minutes, expecting the noise to pick back up. Eerily felt like I was being peered at from the doorframe. After what felt like ages, I whispered, "On the count of 3, we bolt to Mom and Dad's room." We did the countdown and then sprinted. We must have sounded deranged on the other end, just a cacophony of banging on the doors and yelling. My mom opened the door, dazed and confused. I yelled, "Something was climbing on the walls. Did you not hear it?" She gave me a look of skepticism, but my brother chimed in and she got concerned. My dad then swept the whole house with a shotgun, eventually giving us the whole coast is clear. What bothers me is, 1, how did this not wake my parents up? The sound was loud enough to shake the whole hallway. And 2, if it was actually an animal, how could it sound as heavy as a person? Let alone make the sound come out of the hallway. The ceiling clearance was so small, nothing that heavy could be stuck in the wall and travel past the doorframe and come back with the same speed. And if it was of paranormal nature, why hasn't this happened more often? The only other strange experience that could remotely have anything to do with this would be the day I saw a hazy gray form behind the backyard fence. It was the rough size and shape of a person, and it didn't move. Even when I had the courage to step within 8 feet of it, it didn't move. And still confused me. It wasn't a vapor or smoke or small cloud, just a gray mass that you could look through, like your vision was colorblind, on that one point behind the fence. Anyone else experience this kind of thing? If it's familiar phenomena to anyone else, I'd love to know. This stuff still messes with my head, and I've never experienced anything like it since. This did not happen to me, but to one of my good friends. He told me the story when we were sharing scary and unsettling things we've experienced. I believe that it is true. He was turning ghost white as he continued telling the story, and was close to tears when he finished. For the sake of making the writing easier, I will write it from his perspective. I lived in a small bay town when I was younger, a town small enough to the point to where everyone knows each other and any gossip would be consumed by the town in less than an hour. I had a friend who I will address as Jake. We did everything together. There wasn't much to do in a small town, so we'd usually play video games at night and drink if we could find any alcohol. Jake always talked about how he'd hear strange noises in his house at night, especially when he was alone. His house was old, and apparently a murder had taken place at that house, and other people died there due to other natural causes such as illness. Horror stories were common to keep children out of danger in small towns, or just for older kids to scare the younger ones. I was 16. Jake was 17 at the time. We had planned to stay up the entire night playing video games, eating snacks, and drinking beer. He had recently started talking more and more about odd things around his house, but I brushed it off as him trying to scare me. Everything was normal when I walked into his house that night. We went to his bedroom, which was on the bottom floor of the house, and started our night. His parents were out that night, so we had the entire house to ourselves. About an hour in, I left his room to go use the bathroom. The bathroom was up a flight of stairs, which opened into a hallway down the length of the house, with the bathroom being at the end of the hallway. And above it was a ceiling attic hatch. After using the bathroom, I noticed that the hatch was open. I thought it was strange, so I went back to Jake's room and told him. Both of us went back and just stared at it, trying not to show the uneasiness that was tying a knot in our stomachs. We closed it, turned off the upstairs light at the bottom of the staircase, and went back to his room. An hour and a half later, Jake had to use the bathroom. Before leaving the room, he busted a joke about how the hatch was going to be open again. And as a joke in return, I said I'd walk upstairs with him to investigate. He turned the corner that led to the staircase, and the hair stood on our necks as we saw the light shining from the upstairs. We looked up the stairs, seeing the wide-open attic hatch. We slowly approached it, quickly closed it, and ran back the stairs as fast as we could back to Jake's room, slamming the door and locking it. Neither of us had the stomach or bravery to hide our fear at that point. We were so paranoid that we slept in the same bed. We didn't hear any noises as we tried to sleep, but eventually I managed to drift off. Falling asleep, I woke up and found myself in a dream. The world was black and white. I realized I was in Jake's room, and it felt so realistic that I didn't even notice I was dreaming at first. I got up from out of bed, and something drove my body over to the window, between two hedges which had never previously been there. A lady in a wedding dress stood below an arch that was overgrown with dead vines. She turned around and saw me and started to smile. At first it was not too creepy, but then her smile started getting wider and wider until it reached both of her ears. A ring filled my ears. She started laughing. Something started scratching at the door that was to my back. My eyes were locked to the lady in the dress. I could not move and was paralyzed with fear. At that moment I woke up, but I was on the couch in Jake's room and not his bed. His eyes were wide when he saw I was awake and asked if I was up any time during the night. Confused, I told him no. He then told me that in the middle of the night, I got out of bed and stared out the window with a wide grin on my face. He explained that after that, I left the room, and he heard a large thump. Then I came back into the room and fell asleep on the couch. Once we cleaned up and left his room, our curiosity bested us, and we decided to look upstairs, only to see that the light was on and the attic hatch was wide open.